Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivana Dari Gopijana Vallabha Girivana Dari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivana Dari Gopijana Vallabha Girivana Dari Sodanandana Pratijana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivana Dari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivana Dari Sodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Vishnupada Paramahansa Supreme Jakacharya Asatura Sadashishi Shrimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Vananta Gaudiya Vaishnava Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavadam Ki Jai Shri Maya Purnavidam Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Somaveda Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Gauprimanandi. All glories some devotees, all glories some devotees, all glories some devotees, all glories Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we're reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 5, and Text 5. Parabhavas Tavat Bodhajato Yavan Na Giyasata Atmatatvam Yavat Kriyas Tavat Idang Mano Vai Karmatmakam Yena Sarira Bandha Parabhavas Tavat Bodhajato Yavana Yasata Atma Tattvam Yavat Kriyas Tavadidam Manovai Karmatmakam Yena Sarira Bandha Parabhavas Tavat Bodhajato Yavana Yasata Atma Tattvam Yavat Kriyas Tavat Idang Manovai Karmatmakam Yena Sarira Bandha Parabhavas Tavat Bodhajato Yavana Yasata Atma Tattvam Yavat Kriyas Tavat Idang Manovai Karmatmakam Yena Sarira Bandha Parabhavas Tavat Bodhajato Yavana Yasata Atma Tattvam Yavat Kriyas Tavat Manovai Karmatmakam Yena Sarira Bandha Anybody else like that? That's right. Parabhava, defeat, misery. Tavat, so long. Bodhajata, produced from ignorance. Yavat, as long as. Na, not. Jigyasate, inquiries about. Atmatattvam, the truth of the self. Yavat, as long as. Kriyaha, fruit of activities. Tavat, so long. Idam, this. Manaha, the mind. Vai, indeed. Karma atmakam, absorbed in material activities. Yena, by which. Sarira bandha, bondage in this material body. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki. As long as one does not inquire about the spiritual values of life, one is defeated and subjected to miseries arising from ignorance. Be it sinful or pious, karma has its resultant actions. If a person is engaged in any kind of karma, his mind is called karmatmaka, colored with fruitive activity. As long as the mind is impure, consciousness is unclear. And as long as one is absorbed in fruitive activity, he has to accept a material body. Purport. Generally, people think that one should act very piously in order to be relieved from misery, but this is not a fact. Even though one engages in pious activity and speculation, he is nonetheless defeated. His only aim should be emancipation from the clutches of Maya and all material activities. Speculative knowledge and pious activity do not solve the problems of material life. One should be inquisitive to understand his spiritual position, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 4:37. Yathaid hamsi samid hognir bhasmasat kuruterjuna ghanagn sarvakarmani bhasmasat kurute tataḥ. As a blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions to material activities. Unless one understands the self and its activities, one has to be considered in material bondage. In Srimad Bhagavatam 10.2.32 it is also said, Yenye ravindākṣa vimukta-māninas asta-bhāvād aviśuddha-buddhayaḥ. A person who doesn't have knowledge of devotional service may think himself liberated, but actually he is not. Āruhya paramْ tataḥ patanty nādṛta-yuṣmad-aṅghrayaḥ. Srimad Bhagavatam also 10.2.32. Such people may approach the impersonal Brahman effulgence, but they fall down again into material enjoyment because they have no knowledge of devotional service. As long as one is interested in karma and jnana, he continues enduring the miseries of material life, birth, old age, disease, and death. Karmis certainly take on one body after another. As far as jnanis are concerned, unless they are promoted to the topmost understanding, they must return to the material world, as explained in Bhagavad Gita 7:19. Bahunam janmanam mante jnanam papajyate. The point is to know Krishna, Vasudeva, as everything and surrender unto Him. Karmas do not know this, but a devotee who is 100% engaged in the devotional service of the Lord knows fully what is karma and jnana. Therefore, a pure devotee is no longer interested in karma or jnana. Anya bilasita sunyam jnanakamadyanavratam. Madhya Lila 19:167. The real bhakta is untouched by any tinge of karma and jnana. His only purpose in life is to serve the Lord. Om Jnana-tamarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshur Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Mukram Kurtavachalang Pangunang Haidhegrim Yatkripa Tadaham Vande Shigurum Dinataranam Vanchakapatubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Chapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Prabhupada starts out this purport that generally people think that one should act very piously in order to be relieved from miseries. But this is not a fact. See, if someone performs pious activities, then he has to come back in his next life to receive the results of his pious activities. So he's still entangled. And when he comes back to receive those results, he could also get, start engaging in sinful activities again. So it's, it's not the way to go. But as Prabhupada mentions, the way to go is to engage in devotional service, just to become completely free of all karma and jnana, to become free of this ignorance. You see, we're all born in this world in ignorance, right? Om jnana tamanandasya gyananjana salakaya chakshur militam jena tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. So we're born in this world in ignorance, and then we go to school and we learn more ignorance. Yeah. So much nonsense you learn in school. And actually, when you go to college, some devotees are telling me that that's where you really learn how to sin. Now we have some college people here. That's where the sin really increases in college. But actually we're meant to become free of this ignorance, and therefore it's stated, Atato Brahma Jigyasa, now is the time to inquire about the absolute truth. This is the purpose of the human form of life, to inquire, who am I? What's the goal of life? Why am I suffering? Is there any remedy for this suffering? Is there any answers for this? For these questions? Yeah, there's many answers to these questions given in Prabhupada's books. So much knowledge is being given to us, and it's transcendental knowledge, which means that you could hear it again and again and again, and you get more and more realization from it, and how to get free of this suffering, and how to get this knowledge. The remedy for this suffering that people are experiencing in the material world is sadhu sangha, nam kirtan, bhagavat shravana, mathura vad, sri mathura shrudhaya sevan. These are the 5 remedies for the suffering that the living entity experiences in this material world. The first one, sadhu. You have to associate with the sadhu, sadhu sangha. By association with the sadhu, then we learn so much. It's like Prabhupada, such a great sadhu. We've all learned so much from Srila Prabhupada. How to gain transcendental knowledge, how to become free of suffering. So much information is given from the sadhu. And Prabhupada, he's such a great sadhu that he's created other sadhus whom we could also learn from. This is a real sadhu. Prabhupada. So sadhu sangha nam kirtan, by chanting the holy name of Krishna, we get purified. Nama Chintamani Krishnas Chaitanya Rasa Vigra Purno Suro Nityamukto Abhinadvam Namanamino. It's the transcendental giver of all benedictions, whatever you want. By chanting the holy names, of course, we don't pray for any material things. We pray for spiritual things, transcendental things, like transcendental knowledge, transcendental realization, purity, desire to serve Krishna with love and devotion. So the Nam, the holy name of Krishna, will fulfill these transcendental desires. Nama Chintamani Krishna Chaitanya Rasa. It is the form of all transcendental mellows or bliss, the name of Krishna. Because the name of Krishna, it's non-different than Krishna, fulfiller of all desires. It's complete. Everything is there in the holy name of Krishna, non-different than Krishna. And it's purifying. We all want to get purified, so this is how to get purified. Connection with the name of Krishna, connection with the knowledge given to us by Krishna. In this purport, Prabhupada mentions this nice verse in the Bhagavad Gita. As a blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions to material activities. So just by attaining this knowledge, we become free of all these reactions to material activities. I mean, that's pretty amazing knowledge. Just by getting this knowledge, we become free of all the reactions to material activities. That's powerful knowledge. And the next verse in this chapter, the 4th chapter, Krishna says, Nahi jnanena sajjasam pavitam ihavidi tatsvayam yogasam sada kalinatmani vindati. There is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. And when one has become accomplished in the practice of devotional service, one experiences and enjoys this knowledge within oneself. Generally, we don't enjoy knowledge. Like people go to the universities, they don't enjoy. Generally, it's not. It's kind of boring. They do it. They go out and get a good job. After school, but it's not something enjoyable. It's an austerity. But here also in this verse, it said that it's that one experiences when actually the knowledge comes alive. By hearing him and by engaging in devotional service, the knowledge becomes alive. You live the knowledge. It's like Prabhupada, he lived the knowledge. He was like a walking Bhagavad Gita. He lived the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. And therefore, when people heard him speak, changed their lives. So, this is the power of transcendental knowledge. Because this knowledge is given knowledge of the soul, it's given knowledge of Krishna, and it's given knowledge of devotional service. So therefore this chapter is called Transcendental Knowledge, chapter 4, Bhagavad Gita. So much transcendental knowledge is given in this chapter. And the next verse, Shradava labhate jnanam tatpara sangyasindriya. What's the next line? Shradava labhate jnanam tatpara sangyasindriya. Anyway. That a faithful person who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge and who controls the senses, he attains such knowledge, and upon attaining such knowledge, he attains the highest peace. So, this this knowledge is so pure, and we should be dedicated to this knowledge and have faith in this knowledge. How can we dedicate ourselves to this knowledge? First, by hearing. We have to hear again and again and again. Prabhu, maybe you could move somewhere else because someone might come in. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. So, to dedicate ourselves to this knowledge is to take advantage of it, to hear this knowledge again and again and again and again. We get purified by this hearing. And then to give it out to others. You get something nice, it's natural you want to give it out to others. Just like people sometimes ask me, oh, why are you doing this? And I say, well, you know, it's nice knowledge. And you get something nice, you want to share it with others. So I want to share it with you. It's nice. You'll like it. So yeah, sharing it with others. Shradava-labhata-jnana. So this is this transcendental knowledge is it's purifying, and this by hearing this knowledge we gain great faith in Krishna. And sometimes people say, "Yeah, this religion, it's all this blind faith, this faith." But everybody has faith. Just like people in the universities going to school, they have faith that they do good in school, they'll get a degree and go out and get a good job, make some good money. Yeah. Yeah, they have faith. They'll go to school, make a lot of money, and pay off that debt. Sometimes, believe it or not, students have $1 million debt. Yeah. Yeah. Spend years and years and years just paying off their debt. And when people get on a plane, they have faith that the pilot, he's not drunk. Sometimes they're drunk, you know. Yeah. I was reading while I was on the plane. I was reading how there was one pilot was drunk. Or they fire them. Yeah, immediately they're fired. So in so many ways we have faith. We drive on the street. We have faith that the other drivers are good drivers. Yeah, there's a lot of bad drivers out there, but we have faith that no one's going to crash into me, and that happens, unfortunately. So everybody has faith. As far as blind faith, well, there's also blind doubt. There's blind doubt. Sometimes people they reject the Bhagavad Gita, or they reject the existence of God because, well, I've never seen God, never heard God speak. But actually, if one is trying to understand something, then an investigation is necessary. Investigation. Make a good investigation. It's an important thing, whether God exists or not. If He does exist, there's certain things we should do. Certain things that we shouldn't do. So investigation is very important. So sometimes when I speak to students, they express their doubt about the existence of God. So I tell them, well, it's an important thing. Why not make an investigation? That's a sign of intelligence. You investigate. Such an important thing. That makes sense. All right, I'll investigate. I'll take a book. Yeah, take a book. So, and it's stated in the Shastra that this is the beginning of spiritual life. Adho shraddha tatasharu sangata bhajanakriya tato narta nirvitisha tato nishta ruchistataha. That this is the beginning. Have some faith. Yeah. And there's many ways that people can gain faith in Krishna. Like I read the Bhagavad Gita. And it was so clear. Prabhupada gives such a clear translation and purport. I had faith. Krishna's God, and I just wanted to, find anybody that's living these teachings. Unfortunately, Krishna directed me. And when I went to the temple, I had faith. I'm not going back out into material life again. This is it. This is the potency of Krishna and the pure devotee. And many people, they hear this knowledge and they get faith. Of course, most people, this is the age of Kali, so most people, they don't get that faith. But some people do. And therefore we go out and we distribute books so that those people that are open to this transcendental knowledge are able to appreciate and embrace it and take to it. But that's the first thing, faith. So that's preliminary faith. Tataḥ. From that preliminary faith, one wants to associate with people that are living these teachings. And when you're associating with people that are living these teachings, you find out very quickly about bhajana kriya, which is devotional service. That's what this movement is all about, is devotional service. Doing service for Krishna with devotion. The bhajana kriya, dao shuratata sadhu sangata bhajana taton artha nivrittisha. Now the first three are not that difficult to get. It's like people come here and they give donations or something. They give some donation, associate with devotees. Not that difficult. Now to give up bad habits, whoa, very difficult. Habit is second nature. To give up bad habits, very difficult. So the best thing to do to give up bad habits is to exchange them for good habits. You get good habits and you give up the bad habits. So we have to learn good habits. And our mind is filled with so many bad habits, bad thoughts. There's subtle habits that we're trying to become free of. So we have to pray to Krishna for a pure mind that only has good thoughts, no bad thoughts, just good thoughts. And Krishna, he fulfills desires. Man proposes, God disposes. We pray for good thoughts, Krishna will give us good thoughts. If we have good thoughts, we'll have good actions. If we have bad thoughts, we're going to have bad actions. It all begins with the thinking, feeling, willing. So we have to pray for those good thoughts. Those good thoughts are our friends. We want a lot of friends in our mind. And we want to get free of those, the enemies, the bad thoughts, that keep us bound in this material world. So another verse, this purport is filled with many nice verses. He says, Bahunang janmanam mante jnanamam papadyate. After many, many births, one who is actually knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of our cause and all this. Such a great soul is very rare. To surrender to Krishna is very, very rare. And such a person is known as a Mahatma, a great soul. To surrender to Krishna is difficult because we're conditioned to surrendering to Maya, to giving in to Maya. So now we're trying to change our course of activity and surrender to Krishna. That's a Mahatma. Mahatmanas tamam partha diving prakrinamashita. Those who are not deluded, the great souls, Those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They're fully engaged in devotional service because they know me to be the Supreme Personality of God. So it's rare to be a Mahatma. A Mahatma is always chanting the holy name of Krishna. Sadatam kirtiyantam mam yatantrascha judavita. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me. Such great souls are very rare. This reminds me of a pastime of Srila Prabhupada. This is in Bombay before we got that big temple. You know, there's many hurdles he had to cross over, and one of them was the city itself. They had to get permission to build the temple, and one of the persons said, "No, we should not give them permissions. They have this kirtan, this nuisance." Prabhupada was furious when he heard that they're calling it nuisance. Oh, he was furious. You know, the most holy book, the most famous book in India, Bhagavad Gita, says, Sadatam kirtiyantam, always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me. These great souls, they perpetually worship me with devotion. So Prabhupada said, at least he could have been a gentleman and could have said, well, the kirtan early in the morning could be not so much desired by the neighbors. He could have spoken like a gentleman, but he calls it a nuisance. Oh man, Prabhupada was furious. So Prabhupada, of course, he was always victorious. It's like here in this verse, aviśuddha-buddhayaḥ. This means defeat. Now, many of Prabhupada's disciples, they were defeated by the onslaught. There was just so many obstacles to get this temple, and even his disciples, they canceled the contract. And Prabhupada, as soon as they told him on the phone, Prabhupada would cancel the contract. Prabhupada just hung up the phone. Click. And they were thought, uh-oh, we made a mistake there. And Prabhupada picked it up again. He had this desire to give Krishna. He promised Krishna a temple there for him, and he wasn't going to be defeated. Prabhupada is very victorious, in all of his endeavors to spread Krishna consciousness. He was always victorious. Such a great personality. Actually, Prabhupada, he said that high-class neighborhood is a neighborhood where no one complains for kirtan. Because that was the big thing, that was this person in the city, people are going to complain. So Prabhupada said that's first-class neighborhood, where neighbors don't complain. We have a good neighborhood, first-class neighborhood. No one complains, right? We haven't gotten complaints or... Anybody since you've been here? No complaints since you've been. That's pretty good. Yeah. First-class neighborhood, right here, Grand Avenue. No one complains. And we have some loud kirtans. The Maharaj, sometimes he goes across the street. He gets flowers early in the morning during the kirtan. And he says, it's so loud. The drum is loud. The door's open. No one complains. Krishna's mercy. There is one instance in Fiji where they would have these loud kirtans, 4:30 loud kirtans. So one neighbor next door, he was a lawyer. So he decided to take the devotees to court and sue them for disturbing the peace. He was a big lawyer in the city. So the devotees were worried, oh no, he's going to sue us. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he was the GVC there. So a few days after this, they got this information, they told Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And he told the devotees, tell him to come to me. I want to speak to him. He's a neighbor, so he's just right there. So he came over. And he said, I'm going to help you in how to increase in your business. So he asked him, what are your hours? You know, and he was like, he was surprised. What are you talking about? I'm going to sue you guys, and you're asking me what are my hours? And anyway, just listen to me, okay? Just what are your hours? You know, I'm going to help you with time management. You know, so he told him the hours, and he adjusted his hours, and also you should chant 1 round of japa a day for 1 month, just for 1 month, and you let me know how that goes. So he was Hindu. You know, Fiji is mostly Hindus. But you know, Hindus, you know, sometimes they cannot be very, you know, he wanted to sue the temple. Yes, sometimes they can be a little off. But Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he's a very potent personality. He's got a lot of Shakti. So he had such Shakti that the person, all right, I'm going to chant 1 round for a month. See how it goes. So he did that. And his business increased. His life in general increased, you know, better, to the better. And just to make a long story short, for many years now, he's been the temple president in Dallas, Texas. He took initiation from Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and he's, yeah. He's not a I think he's affiliated. He's not a GBC, but he works with the GBC, and he manages temples there in Texas. He's not a full-on GBC, but he's kind of going that direction. So interesting that his devotional service or his devotional life began with desiring to sue the temple for too much noise. So this is interesting how people join our society. Did I say yet how Anantarupa and Aruda in Boise joined? Did I say that story yet? Anyway, maybe some of you might have heard, but anyway, it's an interesting. Anantarupa, he was living on the East Coast in America, and I believe he was working with a company there, and she was pregnant. So she thought, well, we should do something. You can't do anything. She said, maybe read something. So there's a Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita there. So she started reading the Bhagavad Gita, and she was amazed. She was amazed about Prabhupada's translation and purport of the Bhagavad Gita, and she started reading it to her husband, Anantarupa. And he was also amazed. And they started visiting the temple there. I think it was Philadelphia, somewhere around there. And then he had to move for his work. He had to move to Boise. And there was no temple in Boise. So he thought, well, we'll just start our own temple. It's like they turned their house into a temple. They started inviting people and had a Sunday feast and Bhagavatam class. And so what's interesting is she was reading the Bhagavad Gita out loud for the benefit of her child. And he became, was it Radhika Raman, is that his name? Yeah, who was just, he's the boy wonder of ISKCON. Yeah, he did his PhD on the Sandarbhas. And what does it call that? Valedictorian? They do the speech at the university? Yeah, he was the head of this class, and he was so popular in the school there in Boise. He gave the, amongst everybody, the students, and he gave the speech, the valedictorian, is that what it is? The speech. like thousands of people. He gave the Indodian Kurta and Tilak, and everybody loved him. He was just he's just like he's an angel, He's just like such a wonderful devotee. So hearing in the womb, and his brother, pretty much the same thing. He's just wonderful. They're both just saints, they're both professors now teaching, but very strict devotees. The whole family, very strict devotees. So that's how they became. He got a book, and the book sat there in the bookshelf for 10 years. Nobody picked it up for 10 years. Tick, 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 ticking away, just waiting. Many examples of devotees joining, and the book is just, there's one instance of one person. He was visiting his grandmother, and he didn't have anything to do, so he's looking through the books, and he sees the Bhagavad Gita, and he takes it off, starts reading it, and he's also like amazed, and he asks his grandmother, where did you get this book? And she looks at it. She says, I haven't a clue. I've never seen it before in my life. I have no idea how it got there. It's amazing. Krishna's, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Parthi is the master of all mystics, He's just another interesting thing that there was a devotee was distributing books, and he was offering an SSR to a student, and when he saw the SSR, he said, "Oh my goodness!" And he said, "What's wrong?" He said, "My mother got that book from one of you people, and she was in the middle of the night. She was sleeping, and she starts hearing some bells, and she's like, 'What is that?' So she gets up, and she goes in. The bells ringing in the kitchen. So the book is on the top of the refrigerator, and the bells are ringing. The book is floating and it's glowing, and the bells are ringing." Yeah, and the devotee says, "Is this true, really?" He says, "Yeah, I'm telling you, my mother's a very normal, nice mother, housewife, just a very normal person, and she couldn't believe it." So the devotee, this person bought the book, find out more about this knowledge. So many transcendental things happen with Prabhupada's books. On that note, is there any question or comment? Yes, please, Sriveda Prabhu.
Hare Rama, Hare Go. So I've been here a long time, and we used to do regular programs at this devotee's house. I forget, it was in North County somewhere. I forget the names and everything. But it was a couple's house, and she became pregnant, and I told her that it's auspicious for the child to hear Shastra, and I had recorded my Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. I have a recording of the whole Gita, unless you don't know, with the purport. So she got that, and she started playing for the kid, and eventually, so she gave birth, and she would bring the kid to the Sunday feast, and like now, I would often lead the kirtan. So she's carrying the kid, and as soon as I would start singing, the kid would go wild, because he'd recognize the voice. They'd recognize the voice. Now, I haven't been in touch with them, and the kids, he's grown up by now. It would be interesting to see how the kid developed over the years. But it definitely has an effect.
Yeah, find out who she is and find out about him.
Yeah, what happened with the kid. He's probably a book distributor in some temple somewhere.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Vijaya Krishna Prabhu.
May I?
You may.
Prabhu, the quote from the purport is as follows, quote, "Such people may approach the impersonal Brahman effulgence, but they fall down again into material enjoyment because they have no knowledge of devotional service, end quote. So Prabhu, my question is, in what measure can we compare getting access to the Brahma Jyoti, living in the Brahma Jyoti, with a fish getting out of the water?
Explain further your question.
Because Prabhu, Srila Prabhupada is, in the context of this quote, is saying that because there is no knowledge of devotional service, the living entity must fall down from the Brahma Jyoti, and for the fish to go on living, he needs to go again inside the water. So what is the reason, if I may say it, the
Dravida has
strongest
something to
reason
say.
for us to fall down from the Brahma Jyoti?
Dravida has something to say.
I think you're mixing two things up. The analogy of the fish out of water is the analogy of the living entity out of the spiritual world. And you can never be happy in the material world because he's not in his natural environment, in his home. And so just as the fish out of water, you can provide so many things, but he'll never be happy until he goes back into the water. Similarly, the living entity will struggle here and go there and perform pious activity, sinful activity, but he'll never be happy unless we go back to the spiritual world. Going to the Brahma Jyoti is due to ignorance of our actual real home in the spiritual world. We want to be free of misery, but we take on we accept impersonalism because there's no birth, no death. But because there isn't the taste, the actual enjoyment of serving Krishna, we eventually become frustrated there, and we come back down here to enjoy the reflection of actual pleasure in varieties. It's two different things.
Well, you could say that his being in the Brahma Jyoti is also a fish out of water, because he's not in his natural position, right? Yeah, both. Yeah, so the Brahma Jyoti could also be a fish out of water because he's not in his natural position until he goes back into devotional service. Therefore, he falls down. Yeah, so that's also there. Is that okay?
Yes,
Vijaya?
better than okay, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Hare
thank
Krishna.
you. Yes, we have.
You mentioned 5 remedies, but you only, I think you only said, I only noted down 3, like
Okay.
Sadhu Sangam, Nam Kirtan and Bhajana Kriya.
And then there's Sadhu Sangha, Nam Bhagavat Mathura Vas, living in the holy places or living in the temple, and also engaging in devotion, in deity worship. Well, that's chanting the name, but worshiping the deity.
Okay.
So those are the 5. Yeah, the morning program has all those, so it's very auspicious. There's a good chance if we do this morning program throughout our life, we'll go back home. Yeah, the evening program also have a little message there from Dravida Prabhu. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.